Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Okay, morning. First of all, I'm recording this a little late. It's early on Friday morning, September 26th. Let me start here, and there really is no perfect place to jump off. The amount of information that's coming out right now and the number of things that are happening right now are pretty overwhelming, and it's a good thing, I think. This is not bad news. This is good stuff. And we've been waiting for this for a very long time. First of all, if anybody thinks that those Q posts are bullshit, I would basically start off by saying this. Why is it that there are 3 Q posts dated September 25th, all having to do with Comey and indictments? And, are you ready for justice? Anybody can get on the Q board and type in September 25th, and you'll come across every single one of them. And again, it's pretty overwhelming, but it's not an accident. I'll read them off to you right here. Again, they all dropped on exactly the same day, practically within an hour of one another. So there was drop 4767, which says some will take the easy path to exit early. There's 4768, which says justice is coming. And then there's 4769 that has a Twitter link to James Comey's Twitter account where he's basically saying, I didn't lie, I didn't do anything wrong. And it says, worth remembering, think what you know now. Again, all dated September 25th of 2020. So, something's going down, and we're watching all this happen, and I think we get to just kind of sit back and enjoy it, frankly. You have Pete Hegseth again bringing in a bunch of generals, allegedly, at least that's what we're told, all into Quantico. You've got apparently fencing going up in D.C. at the exact same time. You've got liberals swallowing Tylenol and killing themselves. They're basically just doing the exact opposite of what anybody is telling them to do, and they're just doing it just because. But again, people are losing their minds here, and a lot's going on. I don't want to spend too much on the Charlie Kirk stuff other than openly saying this. I think it's fantastic, again, that the mainstream media really isn't getting away with a lot of this. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there on social media and in these social media platforms, and they are spoon-bending like spoon-bending is some kind of a competition. They're all trying to figure out who they think shot. What angle was it? What person was it? What video's been altered? This, that, and the other. And the one thing that most of them are not considering, at least the large accounts with all of the followers and subscribers and whatever, is that the thing didn't happen. Is that the entire thing was staged. Because that right there is Occam's razor. That's a perfect way of thinking about it. Again, the answer lies in the explanation that requires the least amount of assumptions. All these other accounts are now actually actively making content, making fun of one another for their own takes on what they think happened. Alex Jones is making fun of Stu Peters for saying that somebody did it when they didn't. Stu Peters is saying this happened. Brian Matta is saying that this happened. Hey everybody, I found the real shooter this time, I swear to God. It's complete and utter nonsense. Just sit with the fact that the whole thing was staged and that none of it happened. You were watching a complete script unroll right in front of your faces, and people were being taken for a ride. This is the difference between the awake and the asleep. The asleep will fall for it, hook, line, and sinker almost every single time. Whereas the awake, they stop, they back away from it, they look at it objectively, and then they get to work. And they get to work thinking about it and what actually went on. Look at the amount of work that's been done regarding Charlie Kirk's so-called wife and all of the heinous ties that she has to a lot of heinous stuff. Again, if I didn't already say it on the show, I saw her on some dating show. She was on a dating television show where somebody was being set up, some guy was being set up on a date, and she happened to just be coming along with her girlfriend. I mean, it was ridiculous. Parents work for the government. Again, she was running some Romanian child operation overseas with U.S. military, allegedly, or ex-military. It was very, very odd. But she's loaded with all the Freemasonic Knights Templar jewelry and imagery and everything else. This is what the awake people do. The awake people get to work when something like this goes on, and they start digging into these people's past, and then they use social media platforms to get the truth out there. But if you're just playing a ping pong game or a game of pinball, and you're bouncing around back and forth constantly without ever arriving at any kind of a logical conclusion, then it's going to drive you crazy. But there are logical answers out there for all of this stuff. You just have to get to work and start finding it and thinking about it and not get over emotional about it. But again, with everything that's happening right now and all of the moving parts, I'll get back to James Comey here in just a second. Again, he's just the beginning of this. He's just the tip of the iceberg. Let me mention a couple other posts here. There's post 4621 on August 17th of 2020. And at the top it says placeholder, indictments tracking greater than non-civilian. And then it says set 1. And then there are 6 spaces. The first space is already filled in with a Kevin Kleinsmith. This guy was indicted a while back, long time ago. But he was the first. Of course, now we have James Comey, so he'd be number 2. There's at least, again, 4 more that are listed there. And then at the bottom it says placeholder, indictments tracking, again, greater than non-civilian. And then it takes you to a website, which is justice.gov, which just so happens to be 18 U.S.C. subsection 371, conspiracy to defraud the United States. Again, this is not an accident. The Q drops are a military plan, and we've seen this unroll all these years for those of us, again, that were reading the posts as they were coming out. There's another one here. Again, if you get on there, for example, and you type in the name Kevin, you're going to see Kevin Kleinsmith's name pop up a bunch, but you're going to see, again, his name affiliated with endless other people. For example, there's post 1807, which was on August 3rd of 2018, that far back. And it says here, again, it's got a bunch of embedded images and how these people were communicating in a Venn diagram and the whole thing. It's all laid out here. Again, takes you right to another justice.gov website as well. But it says the following, Figure 3.1 FBI chain of command for the mid-year investigation. At the top, it says James Comey, FBI director, fired. Jim Ribicki, chief of staff under James Comey, fired. Andrew McCabe, deputy director, fired. James Baker, office of general counsel, fired. Bill Priestap, head of counterintelligence, Peter Strzok's boss. Power removed, cooperating witness. It says Lisa Page, special counsel, fired. Peter Strzok, lead investigator, deputy assistant director of counterintelligence, power removed, escorted out, classification F. Then it says Michael Steinbach, question mark, John Glaconi, question mark, Randy Coleman, question mark, Tricia Anderson, question mark, Kevin Kleinsmith, question mark, Tashina Gayer, I'm saying that right? Question mark. Sally Moyer, question mark. Nothing to see here, question mark. Logical thinking. Biggest cover-up in U.S. history. Attempted in a kill box, Q. There are endless posts like this with all of these people's names in a giant list. Again, if these people aren't cooperating witnesses now, they're going to go down just like James Comey. But if you get James Comey and you indict him again for lying, or even again, lying under oath and obstruction of justice, well, what exactly did he obstruct? What exactly was he lying about? Because if he was lying about something, which we know what he was lying about everything. His involvement in attempting to take down Donald Trump, if not kill him. You think that the good guys don't have all of that information? They've got everything. They have everything on these people. They have all of their whereabouts, their movements. What were you doing in London at this particular time? Why were you with Peter Strzok and Lisa Page in London? Again, all of this was drawn out in Q drops. You look up their names, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, you're going to see James Comey's picture next to all of them, and all of them being caught on security footage together, walking with one another in foreign countries. This is not normal. But again, this is going down, and there are things that are going down right now that are pretty damn amazing. That's why you need a Charlie Kirk event. That's why you need, again, other events in order to distract people. All these, people shooting at ICE agents, and that, again, clogging up the entire news cycle for an entire day, if not multiple days. It's remarkable. But this is what the bad guys have to do. They have to clog up the news cycle with other stuff so that people don't keep diving in again and certainly looking backwards at Q drops to see exactly what was really going on and what's been going on this whole time. They don't want that. They want everybody distracted. They want them panicking. They want them fearful. They want them ducking, thinking they're going to get shot. That's what they want. And again, if people just slow down and think clearly, they'll understand that this is all going to work out. Of that, I'm pretty certain. I mean, it's rather obvious what's happening here. Here's another one. This is on X. This is from Anon, at Anon55. They said, in this order, Trump brings in National Guard. Trump brings in JAGs. Trump tells Bondi to move forward. Pete Hegseth calls in hundreds of generals and admirals. Comey gets indicted. People can hate me all they want, but the dots keep connecting. They're 100% right. As soon as I found out that Comey was indicted, I immediately said, wait a minute, what day is today? And I was like, oh, okay, it's September 25th. I immediately got on the keyboard and typed in September 25th and started scrolling down for posts having anything to do with James Comey, and there they all were. This is it's a coordinated military operation, and it can't get more obvious. You have Antifa being taken down, which I've spoken about before and the importance of that. That's a very good thing. That's putting it mildly, too. The Soroses are behind Antifa, along with endless NGOs, funding them, moving a little bit of money their way so that they can organize, all dress the same in their black pajamas, all have the same signs, all show up at the same spot at the exact coordinated time in order to create, again, any kind of chaos they want. Not an accident. In fact, Alex Soros put this out regarding the Open Society Foundation, which of course is theoretically connected to Antifa, which Trump's talked about that. Again, regarding a RICO violation here and rounding all these people up through RICO. He said the following, quote, Alex Soros did, the Open Society Foundation unequivocally condemned terrorism and do not fund terrorism. He goes on here, and I'll keep reading, but I mean, what else is he going to say? He's not going to be like, you know what, we fund terrorism, we have ties to Antifa, we always have. We've helped maintain them and keep them going and brainwash these losers. And we're directly affiliated with them, so, come after us. They're not going to say that. They're just going to have to put out some PR statement saying, we don't kill people. We're not in the interest of upending any kind of government. That's not our goal. We don't do those things. We promise. I mean, that's what they have to say. He goes on here. He says, our activities are peaceful and lawful, and our grantees are expected to abide by human rights principles and comply with the law. These accusations are politically motivated attacks on civil society meant to silence speech the administration disagrees with and undermine the First Amendment right to free speech. Isn't that also rich? Little side note, that all of a sudden, people on the left are quoting the Founding Fathers in the Constitution. Isn't that interesting? Like all of a sudden they care about it now. He goes on and says, when power is abused to take away the right of some people, it puts the rights of all people at risk. Yeah, that's rich. He wraps up and says, our work in the United States is dedicated to strengthening democracy. Of that, he's right. Democracy is mob rule. And upholding constitutional freedoms. He says, we stand by the work we do to improve lives in the United States and across the world, unquote. Yeah, he's lost his mind. But he's exactly the kind of person that needs to be wrapped up in these indictments also. Any of these people that have ties to any of these terrorist organizations that Trump's going after, and that hopefully the military continues to go after, you got to round these people up. And we have to see it. And that would be pretty damn cool. But again, getting back to James Comey one more time, and even any of these little indictments, if you get him on a couple of felonies of lying and obstruction of justice, like I said a second ago, that's not only the tip of the iceberg, but once these people are already indicted, that's when you use the court system to introduce more information directly into the court. and they'll say, "Excuse me, Your Honor," or "military tribunal," or whomever. "We have more evidence here that we would like to bring to everybody's attention." And then you just keep rolling this information out on top of them, and then all of the dots connect, and then you've got all these people right where you want them. So again, you can expect this if it hasn't already happened. Of course, James Comey already came out with one of his gay little videos where he talks right into his cell phone and says, he didn't do anything wrong. Well, what's he going to say? "I'm guilty. I tried to take down the President of the United States," even though he openly talks about that constantly. That shells on the beach thing, 8647 or 8645 or whatever the hell it was. "My wife and I came along these shells on the beach." Who believes that shit? Who believes any of that? And then he goes on talk shows and talks about it. Again, that's why all these talk shows and media outlets are absolute deep state playgrounds. They are there on purpose to push their story, their side, all of the time in an attempt to justify it with the mouth breathers who are not awake, who have no idea what's going on. In fact, let me tie this in real quick because this is kind of interesting. I watched the first Tucker installment of his 9/11 documentary, which frankly I think is a bit weak and it's a bit confusing right out of the gate. I mean, he could bring up some major points very quickly if he wanted to that I think would get people's attention, but he's slowly drawing people in to this fact that the FBI either knew that something was going to happen or they weren't told or they weren't allowed to talk about it or whatever. But he does bring in John Brennan. He does, of course, bring in George Bush. He brings in these individuals directly, and he makes mention of them, which again, maybe John Brennan comes in next. Maybe he's indicted next. Who's to say? He's one of the individuals, again, who constantly runs to the media all the time and MSNBC and starts screaming and shouting that he's done nothing wrong and Donald Trump is a tyrant and a fascist and this reminds me of Germany and blah, blah, blah. And all those just ridiculously false historic narratives that get brought up. It's just, it's embarrassing. But again, this is all these people have. All they have now is panic. That's it. It's all they've got. So the panic isn't gonna, it's not gonna stop. And if again, there are sleeper cells, lots of different places with again, staged events or shootings or I don't know, riots of some kind or anything like that, I think that people can expect that to some extent, but just stay away from it. And then that way you don't have to be fearful about anything, of course. That's kind of my take on all of it. But, the leftist lunatics, again, the Tylenol eating, you've got to be joking. Like moths to the flame. They run right to their cell phones, record themselves swallowing Tylenol. I'll show him. These people are nuts. They're absolutely nuts. And again, they just blindly believe strangers around them. And again, individuals on television that they've been following and listening to for God knows how long. And then they just, again, take their advice. Well, Donald Trump's wrong, so you should just do this. You have school board members. I'm not joking about this. I saw a clip just whatever it was this morning. There's a school board member openly discussing how she disagrees with Donald Trump about Tylenol use and it's highly effective, and she's apologizing to all of the parents and the children who might feel scared in these times and blah, blah, blah. My God. Get off of your horse. These people, again, they do not know what they're saying. They cannot do the job that they've been given. Everything has to be political for them. Everything has to be about feelings. It's absolutely insane. Now, with that aside, again, I know I'm bouncing around here. It's early, and I was tied up yesterday with some important stuff, which, by the way, a time is going to come when I'm going to be able to discuss what I've been doing here recently. And I'm probably going to roll it all out in one particular podcast episode when the time comes, but I'm not at liberty to discuss it right now. But it's important, and it's been highly educational. But with that aside, So again, my apologies on the discombobulated nature of this particular episode this time around. But let me get into this. Let me read this Comey indictment here. It's interesting, and apparently this is a summons for him to actually appear. So his tall ass is actually going to be in court, which is good. Here's what it says. Count 1, false statements within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch of the United States government, 18 U.S.C. 1001 A2. It says, number 1, on or about September 30th, 2020, in the Eastern District of Virginia, the defendant James B. Comey Jr. did willfully and knowingly, look up that word on the Q drops, it's everywhere, make a materially false, fictitious, and fraudulent statement in a matter within the jurisdiction of the legislative branch of the government of the United States by falsely stating to the U.S. Senator during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing that he, James B. Comey Jr., had not, quote, authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports, unquote, regarding an FBI investigation concerning person 1. And these people, of course, are not mentioned. That means there's probably a grand jury for these other individuals, or they are cooperating witnesses themselves. I think, anyway. Number 2, it says the statement was false because as James B. Comey Jr. then and there knew, he, in fact, had authorized person 3 to serve as an anonymous source in news reports regarding an FBI investigation concerning person 1. Number 3, all in violation of 18 U.S.C. subsection 1001 A2. And then on the second page, it says, hang on just a second. Number 4, on or about September 30th, 2020, in the Eastern District of Virginia, the defendant, James B. Comey Jr., did corruptly endeavor, interesting terminology there, corruptly endeavor to influence, obstruct, and impede the due and proper exercise of the power of inquiry under which an investigation was being had before Senate Judiciary Committee by making false and misleading statements before that committee. And it says number 5, all in violation of 18 U.S.C. subsection 1505. And then it's signed off by Lindsay Halligan, United States Attorney. Again, you talk about tip of the iceberg. Not to mention, you think about these forms of indictments, lying to Congress and knowingly lying about an ongoing investigation or people affiliated with said investigation. You could round up all of D.C. for this alone. And this is Bush League compared to what this guy did. Again, seditious conspiracy, treason. That's what he was engaging in. Lying, again, is just the snowflake on the iceberg. This is amazing. This is good stuff, though. I don't think this is some kind of a crumb to just satisfy us to some extent. I think this is a big, big deal. And I think, again, this is going to continue to roll out and be a huge deal in the future. So eyes on this one. But also, again, pay attention to all of the distraction events that are probably going to come out, because the media is in on it. Unless, of course, they're given a script by the good guys to basically say, hey, look, tone it down a little bit. Now, let me mention this, and it'll kind of slide right into education here, at least. Well, it will. it will in this way. I've got to bring up the Kirk thing just one more time, but more specifically, the UVU campus. Josiah Richwine, a couple weeks back, right after this broke, sent me, and I've of course had it on Gab and X and more videos as well, but I don't think I've made mention of it here on the show. But UVU, as a university campus, they have an entire department that is dedicated to deep fake videos and altering videos and playing around with all of that technology. And as it turns out, one of the videos of the Kirk quote-unquote shooting that was making the rounds was a UVU video. So if you see any of the video where it shows it from a distance and Kirk's face is kind of blurred out, that was all done by UVU deepfake video editing people. Now, I understand, again, the business of blocking out a person's face and blurring something for one reason or another. course, it's being blurred because not because it's graphic. It's being blurred because they don't want you to zoom in on the details. They don't want you to see exactly what was going on. That there really wasn't any kind of a bullet hole. There was no bullet hole whatsoever. Again, it goes back to the Mike Pence debate. I believe, what was that, 2020? When he was debating Kamala Harris and a fly shows up on his head? That was CGI. That was not a real fly that showed up on Mike Pence's head during that debate. It was purposely done by news outlets or whoever it is that was broadcasting it right there on the spot. They added it, and then all the news channels that were carrying that debate, of course, ran through the exact same television feed. But again, it was done in an effort to embarrass him and make him look less legitimate, or like he can't pay attention that there's a fly on his head, and then get people to literally point at him and laugh and the whole thing. That was the entire point of that. But UVU, I mean, what are the odds that UVU would have their own deepfake video analysis, video editing, this is what we do for a living kind of group on their campus? There's also this. This was sent my way also. It was on Substack. The Substack page of this article is mestuff.substack.com. And it was titled Mass Casualty Event Practice Scenario 2-ish months ago at UVU. Here's two news outlet audios regarding this. Give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
Class in session today for first responders at Utah Valley University responding to a mass casualty event involving a bomb.
It may have been training, but as news specialist Andrew Adams found out from police, the training is as important as it's ever been.
Police say they hope to never encounter a situation like this in real life, but the reality is there are more threats across the country recently, and they want to be ready.
Did something hurt?
First responders were already scrambling after the call came in about a threat.
Several social media messages that said there was a bomb inside this facility, which is our UCCU center.
And then out of nowhere, everything changed. Smoke billowed through the hallways of UVU's basketball arena. The injured were everywhere, inside and outside.
I got ringing in my ears.
And medics were rushing after a bomb apparently went off.
Dude, a lot of burns, a lot of extremity injuries.
It looked like a nightmare scenario for everyone.
We need to get you to the hospital right away.
Except none of it was real.
All right, so what we're doing here today is we had a bomb blast exercise.
The exercise involved crews from multiple surrounding departments and the county bomb squad, which came equipped with the latest technology.
We can put a robot in harm's way and not a person. We'll put a robot in harm's way.
Police say bomb threats have been on the rise across the country.
We had one last week down at Provo, and, it's pretty common.
You guys okay?
Our main focus as law enforcement the last few years have been active shooters.
Femur fracture with heavy bleeding, so we've got a tourniquet.
But now we also need to be training for a bomb situation.
Using live actors with injuries that looked real.
Nice and easy now.
The hope was to accurately gauge preparedness
I'm going to rate this at an 8 out of 10.
in the event a bomb sometime in the future is no longer just a drill.
We want to make sure that we know how to effectively respond to that and try to save as many lives as possible.
Police say, as always, the message to the general public is see something, say something can make a huge difference in a situation like this. They also say it's good to know first aid skills because nobody ever knows when they'll be pressed into duty. In Orem, Andrew Adams, KSL 5 News.
A bomb blast exercise with actors and wounds that look real. Yeah. I hope everybody's catching on. They're openly telling you what they do, and when they run these drills, they'll even run them on the news as if they actually happened when they didn't. And you wouldn't be the wiser. Most people wouldn't. They wouldn't be able to read between the lines here. And during that it's video, it's literal video, but the wounds do look real. They've got a guy on the ground with an amputated arm with a bloody stump, with all the tissue hanging off. I mean, that's exactly how specific they get in these fake drills. And the problem is not only do universities participate in these, and it's not all of them, the vast majority don't, but American K-12 schools engage in these fake school shootings and these staging events as a training event, quote unquote, not just for law enforcement to make sure that they're doing what they need to do, but they do it again for American K-12 school students and employees to basically get used to it, like it's somehow normal. Again, it's just more ritualized trauma and the normalization of all of that. But it's insane. And again, a person walking by, just going out for a jog, would walk past this scene and be like, holy shit, something really is, something's going down. They've got the place filled with smoke, broken glass, debris everywhere, and then bodies lying around with blood all over the place, or what appears to be blood. People would think that it was real. Not to mention, if their TV shows it to them, they would really believe it, because they can't comprehend that these, first of all, exist as so-called training events, which are completely unnecessary, but that it would be staged for the purpose, again, of brainwashing people and be sold to them as if it was actually real. It's disgusting. I mean, it should be outlawed. But this, again, has been normalized in our culture as if this is somehow, the thing that needs to be done. Columbine was a great example of that. That, too, was a staged event. It was a training event. There's absolutely no proof that anybody died there. I haven't seen any. But again, even if, and I've brought this up before too, that if they have these events, it's not that everybody in the environment needs to know about the event. There just needs to be enough realistic looking stuff in the scene in order to trick the people who are also there on the scene who don't know that it's fake. And you can trick them too. So not everybody has to be a participant in the hoax. You just need enough people to be participants in the hoax in order to get away with it and even traumatize the people who are there, who actually believe that, it's actually happening when in fact it's not. It's amazing to me that this is even allowed, but this has to be outlawed. This kind of stuff and these so-called training events have to be outlawed. Now, speaking of that, and speaking of hoaxes, we had another thing this week which was rather interesting, and the first thing that I thought of when it came across the screen is I thought, oh, okay, there you have it. There's the answer to that. And it had to do with that telecommunications bust that took place in New York, allegedly. All of these, again, they show all of this telecommunications equipment that's all connected to one another inside of these giant rooms and whatever else, and they're like, we found this telecommunications, warehouse that could have shut down communication for endless individuals, including emergency responders and everything else, and military and whatever else, not to mention your basic telephone usage and cell phone towers and the whole thing. A good thing we caught them, and good thing we shut it down, and, whatever. I mean, that right there again should prove to people that that's one of the places where these fake phone calls come from that go out to school districts with fake bomb threats. That's exactly how it gets done. Again, I've described it on the show how easy it is to do that all you need is a VPN and a burner phone, and before you know it, you can call in a threat. But it can also be coordinated from foreign countries, and it can be coordinated again from anonymous so-called locations with no ties to an actual person, so they think, and then these telecommunications devices that just do it remotely. That you can remote activate a message to go out to a school district, and before you know it, you've got endless school districts all locked down. All for a hoax. And of course, they won't know it. They'll go into panic mode. Where did this come from? Can we find this person? And then the police will get involved and they'll say, yeah, we can't trace the number. We don't know where it came from. When it might be even the police themselves participating in the act. That's happened too. Of course, they're not going to tell you, and that's not going to make its way to the mainstream media, but that happens. And again, this is just the way that this goes. I don't know really how else to describe it. It's just, this is par for the course. But when you see things like that in the news, understand again, that's how it gets used. It gets used against the public in order to panic them and get them to believe something that's actually happening when in fact the entire thing is manufactured. I mean, it's kind of laughable if you think about it, because that right there again is so simple. It's such a simple thing to focus in on, that a prank phone call can be made to a school district, and that's all it takes to get it to be locked down. And for for your math lesson to all of a sudden come to a screeching halt, and then every door has to be locked and every student has to be in place and everybody has to be accounted for because of a fake phone call. So if you can do all of that and create that mass panic of a large group of people in a coordinated area, in a specific area, or multiple areas across the United States because of a fake phone call, imagine what you can do with a fake video. Imagine what you can do with a fake assassination. You can move psychological mountains with such a video. You can get people to believe just about anything with such a video, let alone a fake phone call. And the trauma that all of that causes, and the brainwashing that all of that causes. It's exhausting, but it's real, which again is the only way that you can really get away from government, is stop participating in government-related activities and stop sending your children to government buildings where these kinds of things happen just casually, where everybody's being socially engineered and manipulated on a constant basis. Here's another one. There's an interesting little story here too. This has to do with a black student, an 11-year-old boy in Michigan, who tackled a kid in a classroom who actually pulled out a gun out of his backpack. But this other kid tackled him and then unloaded the gun, disarmed the gun, but didn't tell people apparently fast enough, and then the kid who disarmed the kid with the gun ends up getting expelled. So this was from redstate.com. It was titled Hero at 11, the boy who stopped a school shooting and got expelled for it. It says an 11-year-old boy in Michigan did something most adults would hesitate to do. He saw a classmate pull out a loaded gun in a school bathroom, and instead of freezing in fear, he lunged, disarmed the student, and prevented what could have been another tragic headline. Again, it's blacks with guns in school, waving them around, threatening each other. I mean, it happens daily, but this is interesting because, again, this is where, unfortunately, discretion comes into play and a misuse of the entire so-called justice system or rules and policies and everything else. It says, in a sane world, this boy would have been hailed as a hero. In today's America, he got expelled. Yes, you read that right. The Lansing School District announced that the child will face disciplinary action for his bravery. Why? Because the district's beloved zero-tolerance policy doesn't distinguish between a kid wielding a gun and a kid taking it away to save lives. Bureaucrats love to tell us that they're keeping schools safe, quote-unquote, but in reality, they're creating a system where blind adherence to rules matters more than actual safety. Exactly. It says this isn't education, it's indoctrination into cowardice. It says zero tolerance, zero logic. The phrase sounds tough, but what it really means is zero thought. A one-size-fits-all policy treats a hero like a criminal. Administrators pat themselves on the back for even enforcement, quote-unquote, but what they're really enforcing is lunacy. Any policy that can't tell the difference between stopping a shooter and becoming one isn't worth the paper it's printed on. It goes on here. It says, schools teach compliance, not character. The message to this boy and to every other student paying attention is clear. Don't be brave, don't take risks, don't step in to help. Just sit down, stay quiet, and hope someone else will save you. That's the lesson public schools are drilling into kids: obedience over courage, paperwork over principle. Now, as it turns out, apparently with this particular story, something happened with the gun between the time when the kid took it away and apparently when adults figured out that this entire situation had actually occurred. I think that was ultimately the problem with this situation, was that some time had lapsed between the time when the incident occurred and when adults found out. And they basically, again, jumped all over the kid and basically said, well, you didn't tell us fast enough. You didn't tell us that this happened. Again, where was the gun throughout that entire time period? I have no idea. Did he keep it himself? Did he disarm it and then give it back to the kid? I mean, I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but in the end, it doesn't shock me that a school district wouldn't look at it objectively as to, again, at face value, what it appeared to be. That there was some kind of a scuffle or a gun came out in some kind of a threatening manner and somebody, a student disarmed another student or did whatever. I mean, at face value, if that's what happened, fine. But, this is the hypocrisy, again, of the entire zero tolerance policy. There is no zero tolerance policy. If there were, then the person who had the gun would never come back to school. But the person who had the gun in the first place, they'll be back. They'll be right back in that school district, no problem. They might get patted down every now and again before entering the building, but they'll be back. It's the lack of expulsion that exists that, again, ultimately sort of highlights the fact that there is no zero tolerance. There never has been. If two individuals are fighting, fist fighting, then you should expel both of those students. It shouldn't matter why they were fist fighting. They should be gone out of the environment. As I've said a million times, if you do that in Walmart, you're expelled from Walmart forever. You're told you can never return to a Walmart. Not so with an American school. Laws can be broken, rules can be broken, people can be threatened. This can happen constantly in American schools, and those students will always return. And if they just so happen to be family members of people who work in those districts, or are family members of school board members, well, they're definitely going to return. They will come back. So, yeah, it's the myth of zero tolerance. It always has been. I'll end with this. When it comes to, again, just sort of medical news here and the constant disclosures that are coming out regarding the truth about all of these poisons that exist on all of these shelves. I think I said it in the last episode, but if I didn't, I'll say it here, and if I did, I'll just repeat myself. The fact is that these medical disclosures of all of this poison that we've all been subjected to and we've seen and people have taken throughout the course of their lives for one reason or another. All of this coming out now and being so blatant and in front of everybody's face is going to emotionally trigger endless individuals because it hits so close to home for so many people. Again, you have all of these parents with autistic children, and they don't want to think for a minute that they were the ones that were responsible for their child having autism. They don't want to think for a minute that they were responsible as parents for their child being handicapped in some way. It's a mirror that is so big and so blinding for these people to look through that it's impossible for a great deal of them. But it's not impossible for others. Again, there are endless parents who fully understand that the reason that their child is the way that they are is because of their own actions. And they own up to that because of what they've learned. I should not have injected my children. I should not have given my children this. I should have not taken this when I was pregnant. I shouldn't have, been on birth control, or I shouldn't have been on this or whatever else. I mean, you can pick a poison. But this again is part of the Great Awakening. These breakdowns that you're seeing these people engage in, where, again, they're apologizing for complete strangers having to listen to this. Again, like the school board person that I was describing earlier. I mean, those kinds of individuals feel the need to somehow, justify, again, their own actions regarding their own child and say, well, my kid has problems, but it's not because of anything that I've done. Well, the fact is that that's not true. Individuals, myself included, I mean, we've acted on particular things believing that something was one way when in fact it's not. I mean, everybody's guilty of that. But it's the leaping before looking. that is what not only gets the individual in trouble, but it gets the people around them in trouble. And there's been a lot of leaping before looking when it comes to the medical industry. A lot. And there's been a whole lot of zero explanations for very simple things that could be easily explained if people just understood a couple of connecting truths and then could connect those dots, and then they would arrive at a logical conclusion. But again, the business of these liberals, again, swallowing acetaminophen and any drug that has it in it and trying to prove a point and then dying or killing their unborn child as a result. And I mean, all of that behavior, that is full-blown brainwashing. 100%. And then, of course, the act of jumping on a screen and recording it as you're doing it and then pushing it out there like you're making a point. It's right up there with the people who took the COVID shots and then started to brag about doing it. And they all had that screen sticker on all of their screens that said, I did it. I got the COVID vaccine. And then right next to it is their obituary. I mean, these people are living memes. They have no idea that they're being made fun of on a constant basis for their own lack of knowledge. But this is going to continue because these people are all over the place. They are not awake. They are completely owned. They believe endless things that are not real. They lack common sense. They are the NPC meme, without a doubt. And it's costing them everything. It's costing them their lives. It's costing their children their lives, their children's freedom, the whole thing. Let me, in fact, I'll end with this, which continues to prove the point, which I also think it's a huge mistake. It's a huge mistake from the left, but they do it constantly. The left believes, by and large, the brainwashed, I should say, they believe that if they take to a microphone, specifically, for example, at a school board meeting, which I watched another school board meeting, the most recent one in Westerville, Ohio. It was highly embarrassing. It was about 3.5 hours long, and it had everything to do with their income tax levy that they're seeking to impose on people that's going to be on the November ballot. And the reason I'm mentioning this is it's just because of the general numbers and the visual optics. I wish you could see these people come up to this microphone. It's really pathetic. And I feel terrible for them, but they have no idea what they're doing. One after the other, these leftists come up to this microphone telling the school board that they love the levy, that they're voting for the levy, they support the income tax levy. This is necessary because we don't want to lose art class, and we don't want to lose music, and we don't want to do this, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to have to consolidate buildings and sell a building. We don't want to have to be put in a position like that. So everybody needs to, give up their paychecks and have more of their paychecks disappear so that you can support the local public school system. And oh, by the way, if you're a property owner and you make money on that, well, that's income tax, which means, again, you're going to be taxed too, and so on and so on. The number of people that came up to the microphone versus the number of that supported it versus the number of people that came up to the microphone that didn't was like 20-1. 20 people, give or take. I'm making up that number. It wasn't quite that high. But all these mouth breathers came up to the microphone supporting an income tax levy for a school district. And only one guy, the same guy I've played before and played his audio on the show before, Doug Krinsky, he gets up there and he says, we have a Facebook page, we have a website, you want to see the finances of the entire district and all of them broken down honestly, we have them on our website. This is where you can go to get the information. We're working to defeat this levy. Your last one failed. This one will fail. Go to the website and learn more about it. We wish you didn't have this levy, but you're clearly going through with it. It's a huge mistake. You're going to lose again. Have a nice day. And he walks away. Everybody else before him and after him is a miserably overweight leftist who gets up to the microphone and goes, feelings, 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 feelings. I have feelings, I have feelings. Listen to me, I have feelings. And then, and this happens too, which is remarkably embarrassing too, is leftist students get up there and they go, I'm a junior here and I take all AP classes and I'm in talented and gifted and I'm in all these extracurriculars, and I can't imagine having a school system that just doesn't have all of those things that I so desperately need. Because that's why I come here, and I love this school district, and I love government, and I love the system, and I'll never wake up, and blah, blah, blah. And they do it one after the other. And then the parents get up there too, and they see the exact same thing. The other interesting part is the Somalis get up there. The Somalis get up there, and what's their beef? What's their number one thing that they want government for? Translation. They want translators. So they get up to the microphone, and that's all they complain about. All they complain about is my student does, or my child rather, doesn't understand English. We need more translators. We need you to give us more translators for our kids and for our parents and grandparents who can't speak English. And you need more Somali-speaking staff members and blah, blah, blah. That's their number one beef every single time. But the reason that I mention that is because of this main point. The left hasn't figured out that the right and the hard right in America, and most Americans, don't like government. We can't stand it. We don't like the positions in government, which is why we don't seek them by and large, unless someone has been wronged, in which case we step up to the plate and we take a particular position if we have to. But they believe literally on the left that if more of them take to the microphone, then they're somehow going to win. What they don't know is that the vast majority of people who know what is really going on, they sit at home and they have already made up their minds. They already know. They don't have to convince anybody. They don't have to take to a microphone and convince anybody to think the way that they think. They already know how they're going to vote, and they already know that they've already won. That's also the art of war. Is you don't fight a battle if you don't have to. Because if you can win it without fighting, then you've already won. I'm paraphrasing it, but that's essentially how it goes. That's typically what happens, generally speaking, on the right. And as we all know, once people wake up to the way that things really operate, then there's no going back to sleep. More people are awake today regarding the American schooling system, quote unquote, than ever before. More people are taking to the microphone to voice their displeasure more than ever before. And yeah, it's happening on the right big time. 2020 was a big wake-up call for a lot of people. 2020 and 2021. But the left believes that if they somehow get more people to come out to these meetings and speak out in favor of it, then they're going to win. They won't. They've already lost. They just don't know it. Because they have no common sense. They have zero sense of perspective. They literally engage in like chain emails and Facebook groups and all screaming and shouting, hey, let's all take to the microphone tonight and we'll make our voices heard and then we'll think that we're in the majority. They have no idea that they're not in the majority. Any logical thinking American wants to keep their own hard-earned money. That's how it works in this country. I mean, that's capitalism. I earned it, it's mine. Go to hell. I'm not going to give it for something that I'm not participating in. Why? I mean, would you open up your wallet and flush your money down a toilet? No, most people wouldn't do that. But only a liberal, only a brainwashed liberal has no problem telling other people how to spend their own money. It happens all of the time. But they don't know, again, just to finish out here, they don't know that they are on the losing team. They don't know that they're on the losing side. Because one side is thinking and the other's not. One side is objective, calm, and collected, and the other is screaming and shouting about their feelings. Don't get rid of my art class. What will I do? They don't even know that they can go home as a student and draw anytime they want. You don't need an art teacher to teach you art. You don't need a music teacher to teach you music. You don't need a gym teacher to teach you how to do a push-up. These are useless positions. And until schools again, or states rather, change the laws in order to accommodate the loss of those particular professions and those positions within so-called education environments. Until the law changes, those positions will continue to exist by and large. But again, my recommendation for things like that, for making serious cuts, is that these school environments just get back to academia. Get back to reading, writing, comprehension, and basic math. And that's it. Then send the kids home. They even said this. This is the real conclusion. Keep making more points because I'm remembering more. In the proposal, in their entire meeting, they openly admit that if the levy doesn't pass, in order to save money, you can't make this shit up. In order to save money, they're going to have to go back. They say go back to shorter school days. Shorter school days. Or not as many school days in the week. But see, people aren't understanding what that really means. What it means is that this whole time that we've all been in school, that all of us went through the K-12 school system, we didn't have to go as often as we were told. School didn't have to be open 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, every flippin' month, every week. Didn't have to happen. We could have been in school for less time. But they're openly admitting that this would be the case. Why is that a bad thing? You're saving money. Students aren't in school as long. Heaven forbid. What will they do with all their spare time? Learn something else, probably. Learn more, probably. But again, this is the lack of thinking. People can't see the forest for the trees. They can't understand that there's actually a lot of good in walking away. But again, just because the left screams and shouts at the top of their lungs doesn't mean that they're right. And just because they show up to a meeting, because only the left loves meetings, they love meetings. They love having meetings about meetings, and when they get to have more meetings. I mean, this is what they enjoy. They believe that if they do all of that, then somehow they're going to win. What they don't know is that they are hated beyond belief, and they are in the minority, the vast minority. Because most God-loving, red-blooded Americans hate government. They don't like meetings. They don't like government. They just want to love their families, live in peace, not have crime, and be left alone. That's it. Real simple. So I'm going to end it there. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening as always. Have a great weekend. The indictments are going to continue, and this is going to get to be a very bumpy ride, but it's going to be fun. So hang in and hold on tight. Should be cool. With that said, again, have a great weekend. I'll catch you on Monday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.